Good morning or afternoon. I'm Jen Wilson. Welcome to Leadership Lunch Chat. I'm here with my good friend Amy Vetter. Amy, hello.
Hello. Happy
Um,
Friday.
you too. So happy that it's Friday. We're in our peak season as consultants to the profession, so we're action packed all week long and
Yep.
every week right now, and it's awesome. But it is good to hit Friday and
hmm
think of the cleanup that could happen over the weekend. So I'm so happy for us to stop and take a moment and center on leadership issues facing the profession. And when Amy and I compared notes, sort of like what's been happening lately when we've been inside firms and spending time with future leaders and existing leaders inside firms these last few weeks or months, um, we both kind of came into this discussion of barriers to change. What are the things that are getting in the way of us making meaningful change? This morning, my husband said to me, um, you just have to, Jen, you just have to keep trying to change the narrative in public accounting. That's what he said to me. And
Aw,
and
you're
I
such
thought,
a great supportive husband.
I do. He's so awesome. I mean, I do in so many ways,
Really
not
do.
just related to my work. I'm super lucky. I tell people that God took pity upon me, and he was like, "Oh, that lady's going to need somebody like Brian," and gave me Brian. But anyway, it's changed the narrative, but changing the conversation isn't enough. It's not and it's important. I don't want to, don't get me wrong. I think firms talking about change is important. Talking about the ideas. Yes, I love it. Let's change the narrative. Let's change the discussion. But what are we going to do to get real meaningful change to happen? And what's standing in our way? And so, I'll tee that up, see if you want to add anything to our topic area, or if you just want to dive in and start with one of the things that you can think of that's inhibiting change inside firms, Amy.
Well, I think one of the things that I'm definitely seeing right now is that we, as a leadership uh, in this profession, are definitely noticing what the issues are with the staff. We're hearing them loud and clear and want to make change. But making change is more than a message. Making change is more than a communication. Making change is walking the walk, not just talking the talk. And in order to really show that there's going to be a shift in culture or a shift in the way that we work, it's important that we go through the process with the shift in the way that we work if we're going to tell our staff that we're going to do that as well. Because the only way to give permission to our staff that, yes, we want you to have better work-life balance. We don't want you to go through another busy season like this. We understand that you're stressed out. The only way we can make sure that happens is if we are actually showing that we're going to change the way that we work, because they look to us, they look to their leaders, they look to their supervisors, and that's how they get permission to do what you say. So we can't be out of alignment with that or think that we can talk about it once and people will believe us. So, in order to create change, we have to go through the hard process of the learning and breaking our habits and our patterns and being very transparent when we are breaking those patterns ourselves and what we're going through to do it. That you might have worked the same way for 30 years, but we've got to start making those shifts, whether we want to or not. It's for real. And so we can keep putting our heels in the sand about it and saying, we're frustrated about it, or really get down and dirty, roll up our sleeves and show that we're willing to make that change as well.
Yeah. So modeling the change is critical, and versus paying lip service. And
Mhm.
I know, there are 100 barriers to change at least, and one of them is I'm afraid. I am afraid of this change. And you talked about habits, and just traditions or something.
Mhm.
But I'll use the example of firing clients, which we've talked about a decent amount recently, and we've talked about as a profession for ever. It's often talked about, seldom done. But you just said the change is for real. You better make it. And I know one of the reasons everybody's sitting up and thinking about change even more than normal is because of turnover, right? So our people are leaving because they don't believe that it will be different. And so we have to model that it will be. One of the things we have to do is we need to make space in our schedule. We have to open up capacity. And yes, you could say recruiting, and I'm not going to talk about non-traditional staffing today. What got you here won't get you there. Stop trying to recruit everything the way you used to. Fix that. But the real hope will be if you make room on the schedule. And the only way to make room on the schedule is to let some clients go. Or hire a bunch of administrative operational people to come in and really grab a shovel and get in the ditch and help us. Both. And most firms don't feel like they have the profit margin right now, or want to spend the profit margin on those additional operational resources. So raise fees, and so like, okay, I'm scared, I am afraid, that's a barrier to change. Well, try it. Let's pilot it. Let's get a small group together. Let's stop, try firing some clients. I've had some people I have people doing this last 45 days. They are in the conversation. They have done the study. They found that they could fire, 1 or 2% of their clients and hardly make a dent in revenue, but make big number changes. And then they've sent these letters and made these phone calls, and they've been surprisingly easy. And then they're like, wow, that wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. And so sometimes we just have to say, I am afraid, but I'm going to try it. Maybe I'll try it small at first. But even despite my fear, what are we more afraid of? Afraid of changing our old patterns, or afraid of having to take some difficult calls from clients, or afraid of losing a few more people? Which fear is worse? And so we've got to get over our fear and try these things. And we'll find that many of them aren't as bad or as hard as we thought they would be.
Yeah. And I think what's important about that is it goes beyond the feeling to your belief system. And so something created that belief system in the way that you work or the way that you operate that may not be applicable now, but we have to do the work to actually understand why it makes us so uncomfortable to cut the day off, or to put those boundaries, or to fire a client. What is actually the belief system behind the fear and creating it? And that can seem really vulnerable and something that maybe isn't comfortable or too touchy-feely to talk about, but it is the predecessor to change, that we have to understand why we are behaving in that way, or why we have that pattern, or why we have that habit. So one of the things that you brought up before we got on was about perfectionism. And I think a lot of people in the accounting profession suffer from perfectionism.
Big time. Yeah.
So it can be a great thing that, we need to make sure numbers are accurate and so forth. But there is diminishing return to things that are non-value added when you are going for perfectionism. And if that is a habit or a pattern for you, it's really important to understand what is creating that for you, or why you feel you need everything to be perfect, or can it be good enough? And how you get yourself comfortable with good enough so that you can get to the most important things. Because what I find many times is people are spending time on things that are non-value added instead of the things that are most important, most critical to win, to make sure that your staff feels that you're listening to them, that you're changing that culture, to make that change within yourself. Because when we do the non-value added stuff, that's what we're good at. That's what we're used to doing. It is something that comes more naturally to us than the things that are mission critical, that are going to create change. And we may not be perfect at it, and we are going to stumble along the way and have to remember how to learn again as we go through that process.
100%. There's a saying, and I don't know who said it, and I'm not going to say it right, but it's something like, don't let perfectionism get in the way of progress. And, we do that in our profession for sure. there's another thing, what you were pointing to is we've got to figure out root cause. Like, what's the root cause of these belief systems? What's the root cause of me, operating in this way? And one of the things that I fear and I witness as a root cause inside a lot of firms that causes change resistance is a self-esteem problem. And we're not worthy. Like, if we fire these clients, we'll never find any other good ones.
Right.
Or if I empower my staff and they start to be the hero with clients, then what will I do? Maybe they'll make me look less awesome than I am. I like being the man or the woman. And when I let my people shine, maybe I won't shine as bright. There's some kind of self-esteem unworthiness that I witness in a lot of the folks that I, see leading firms. And they just don't really believe that they can make whatever change it is successful. And they don't want to say that. They don't know how to do it, and they don't believe that they are the right person to make it work. And it's not hard to get best practices on how to do these changes. Amy and I, you can hit us up in social media and say, this is the change I'm trying to do, and we will know resources, we'll know other firms, we have methodologies. We happily would share stuff with you so that you can feel better about how to. And then, am I good enough? Yes, you're good enough. You're more than good enough. Our profession is filled with incredible people who really care about clients and have, first responders here in this pandemic. When the perseverance and the commitment that I've witnessed over the last 20 months of the people in this profession has been astounding. And so we are smart enough, strong enough, good enough to make these changes. We can't let our inner dialogue make us shrink from what's possible if we actually change some of these things that our talent don't appreciate about our business. We have to change them if we want to keep these bright, wonderful future leaders. We have to change.
Well, and also identify, so we're good enough as a leader if we understand what we're not good at.
Yes.
Amen. Because one of the best things you can do is identify where your gaps are and find the people to fill them. I get so many times where people are like, I don't know how you do all you do. And I'm like, because I don't do it all. I have people that work with me that are really, really good at the things that I'm not good at. And I stay in my lane of what I'm good at and empower those people around me to do the things that I know that would not be my best place to be doing it. And I would start noticing it. So if there's something that you are being forced to do as a leader in these times that is not what's comfortable for you, even if you bring in somebody to do that for you, the reflection is still on you that you did the right thing. So I think that's the hard part a lot of times, is thinking that we have to be everything to everybody. But it isn't that we have to be everything. We have to have good people around us that can fill those gaps for us. And there's been so many times, like I just, one of my close friends that was my manager at my yoga studio for many, many years, just today I remembered because it was her birthday. But one of the things was when she worked with me that she was really good at doing like kids yoga and some other things at the studio that were not things that I would naturally go toward. And so one of her kids' classes happened and I came in to help her with it because she needed some help because of the number of kids we had in the room. And, I did a little piece of it, but she was running it. And we walked out of the class and one of the little girls runs to her mom and says, I really liked Amy number 2 because her name was Amy. And so they decided she was Amy number 1 and I'm Amy number 2. That was great. We used that forever after, that she's Amy number 1 and I'm Amy number 2. It does not matter.
Yeah.
She needed to be the one to be seen, not me in certain areas, because that was where her strengths were and they weren't my strengths. But coming out of kids' mouths was like the perfect way for us to joke about that when we need to switch off and you
Yes,
need somebody else, to help you with the things that aren't necessarily your strengths.
I love that. I think another thing, I love it, Amy number 2. You're Amy number 1 to me, by the way.
Well,
Yeah, seriously. Another thing getting in the way of change and our willingness to really make the wholesale change necessary to give our people hope and really change our business model so it's not such a grind. Another really important thing is I have to get over trying to please everybody and not upset anyone or disappoint anyone. I have to give up like the idea that I might get voted homecoming king or homecoming queen or something, that I'm still in the running for that here as a professional and that I'm still trying to be popular and well loved and all of those things and never ruffle any feathers. We are going to disappoint people, folks. Business leadership is not all about making every single constituency happy at all times, perfectly in sync and harmony. And I know a lot of us that are attracted to the profession have sort of harmony personalities. And so our desire is like, can't we all get along? And why can't I just keep everybody from being upset? But, like for instance, firing clients. If I'm letting clients go, yes, some of them will be disappointed in that. Some might be angry with me. Some might think that it's not fair that I'm doing that or something. And yes, I may have to take some concerned calls. I may have to support my people in taking some of those phone calls. I may feel sad sometimes as I have to say no to certain things that I liked or that I used to do or things that I loved doing because they were easy, but they aren't the right use of my time. I'm going to have disappointment here or there. And I keep coming back to don't disappoint your people. Mm-hmm. Don't disappoint. And you'll disappoint them too because they can't all be made universally happy, right? So sometimes we'll have to make a decision that we're going to choose a certain approach or methodology to something. And some people don't like that approach or methodology inside the firm. And we have to say, well, I want you to trust me and try it because this is the direction the majority of us wants to go. We're going to go this way. And I just have to get over that people are going to push back. Of course they are. Change is not without pushback. It's not without disappointment. Figure out who you're disappointing though. And because you can't please everybody, stop trying to please everybody and start figuring out what the most important people that you need to keep satisfied are, which are probably your high potential next gen talent who are going to buy you out, you hope. Those people, what do they want? And how can we make sure they feel like we're empowering that and making that happen for them and go ahead and accept that others might not totally love every single thing you're trying to do.
Totally agree. I was at a conference last week speaking about being a connected leader and nurturing people and the things that we need to do. And there was a number of conversations after that talk. A few partners taking me to the side saying, I can't get my other partners in alignment with this. And, my message back to them was it starts with you. You do, you make the example, but feeling like they couldn't speak up or push their agenda. And then I had I think he was a senior accountant. He walked into the room, or a manager of a firm that a partner had brought him to this conference. And he came in when nobody was left in the room and said, I really want to talk to you. Everything you said was right. And then there's something else. And I said, what? And so he said, for us that are younger in the firm, trying to push through change and what we see as the future, there'll be partners that are saying, I'm retiring in 3 years and I don't want to, deal with this right now. He's like, what they forget is 3 years is nothing in their career, but 3 years to me is a long time. And so it was such a good point of just putting that in perspective of using our voice. And you're not going to like this, but I'm going to take a moment about you because you just got in the top 10 of the accounting top 100 this week, which is major kudos to you.
Thank
And
you.
you are an example of using your voice and making sure that you are working with people that are in alignment with what you are trying to push forward as change. And I think that example is so important for people to see that you don't, not everybody likes you.
That's the truth. That is so true.
And that's the truth with me as well. But in order to push forward what your purpose is, what your beliefs are, how to make change, we're not going to make everyone happy all of the time. And this example of you getting into a top 10 of people admired in the accounting profession, including myself, is just such a good example of to not be afraid to use your voice, because it does matter. It maybe you don't see the big things right away, but you see the little things over time, and people do notice and they care. So congratulations, Jen. But I wanted to make sure that we just use that example, because it is such an important, and the impact that you've had in this profession.
Thank you. That's awesome and awkward. And I'm grateful. And yeah, I mean, I had to give up that people wouldn't love me. And I'm no different than any other person. I do want everyone to like me. I do want to never have anybody say, I disagree with her, or I think her ideas are terrible, or, I want it all smooth and harmonious. I really do. It hurts my feelings when firm leaders say, we don't want her to speak at our partner meeting because we don't want her ideas in their heads. Mm-hmm. That hurts. I hate that. But I also am so committed to elevate the next generation, and not just this next generation of millennials, but now our Gen Z and their whole orientation, which is a little different than our millennials. And I'm so committed that we stop trying to run a firm selfishly, for the here and now, kind of hedonistically almost, and start running it more altruistically for the future generations, for the sustainability of this profession and our firms. And so, yeah, sometimes I ruffle feathers and I feel sad about that. But I'm not, and also sometimes I'm wrong. Sometimes I say things that I think are a good idea or whatever, and maybe they're not right, but so I'm not trying to be perfect. I'm just trying to solve problems that I see. And yet it's not enough for me just to say it either. I have to walk the walk in my own business, and with every other firm that I get to work with. And it's hard, but change is inevitable. Mm-hmm. You said that earlier. Change is inevitable. So we have to look at the barriers that are slowing us down, because if we're not more nimble and we're not more market responsive, we're going to be in trouble. So I've really appreciated talking about these issues that get in our way, Amy, and I'm sure there are 10 more we could have named. And I'm sure we'll hold a future leadership lunch chat on it. Thanks, everybody, for being here with us today.
Have a great Friday.
Hey, you too. Thanks. Bye.